Hey macro students, here we are with module 66 talking about fiscal policy. So you were introduced to that term fiscal policy last week in a module, and now we're going to really get into what is fiscal policy and how can the government use fiscal policy to help try to fix the economy, or as it says here in our essential question, what can the government do to manage economic fluctuations? And remember, a fluctuation is like that up and down, like those constant changes. Okay, so our definition here, fiscal policy is the use of government spending and taxation to influence the economy. So here we kind of have this little chart that represents that money flows into the government and money flows out of the government. Well, money flows into the government in the most basic way that we always think of is in taxes, right? People pay income taxes to the government, and people pay sales taxes to the government, and businesses pay taxes to the government. And then the other way that money flows into the government, and we saw this on our circular flow diagram, is in loans. The government actually spends more money than they take in taxes, or the federal government at least, and so they do take out loans so that they can spend all that money. All right, just like if I as a person spent more money than I made and I didn't have any money in savings, I would have to take out a loan in order to spend more money than I earned that year. All right, so, and then money leaves the federal government, and the biggest way is what we call government spending. So that's what, most of what the government spends their money on can just be called government spending. And then we also have those transfer payments. Transfer payments is what we commonly refer to as welfare. So that is Social Security. That would be like Medicare and Medicaid. So Medicare is medical insurance for older people, anyone over the age of like 65. And then Medicaid is medical insurance for people who need, like help from the federal government to get medical insurance. So, what we commonly refer to as welfare. All right, so that's kind of how money goes into the government and how money leaves the government. Well, let's talk next about those three types of taxes. I did mention them just a moment ago, but now let's go over them a little bit more detail. So we have federal, state, and local. Federal means national, right? So if anything is talking about federal, it's talking about the national government. Sometimes people will say the feds, and what they're talking about is the FBI, which is like the police agency for the federal government. That's why they call them the feds. State taxes, we pay taxes to the state of Minnesota, and local taxes when we pay them to like the city or the county. All right, so our federal taxes, biggest thing is income taxes. So, you work 10 hours at $10 an hour, and you're like, yay, I earned $100. And then you get your check, and it's for like $80. And you're like, where's my other money, right? So that a lot of that is in the federal income taxes, where they take a percentage of your money. If you are in like a lower income bracket, you pay a smaller percentage, and if you make more money, you pay a higher percentage. All right, so income taxes, that usually if you work for somebody, if you don't have your own business, then you are paying those income taxes, and they come right out of your paychecks. Now, when it says corporate profit taxes, corporate means like is a type of business, right? So they're talking about taxes on the profits of businesses. So, and then social insurance taxes, like that's Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And again, those things are paid by people, and they come right out of our paychecks. And then, let's see, should we define these so that you remember? So Social Security, the main people who get Social Security money are old people. So people who are old and beyond a certain age, and they keep changing the age, but once you reach like some point in your 60s, so like I think lately it's like 67, then you can get Social Security. And what that means, what Social Security is it's like a way that the government forces you to save money for retirement, for when you are old. So when you get your paycheck, you will see that money will get taken out for income taxes and money will get taken out for Social Security. So they take that money out of your checks as you're working, and then you get that money back when you are older. And the reason the government wanted to do that was to make sure that old people are okay. Because, older people, they can't work anymore, right? Like, they just, I mean, some of them can, but a lot of them cannot. And so, by kind of forcing people to do Social Security means that um, means that it's kind of a way to sort of ensure that older people are going to be okay. Now, there are a lot of problems with that. It is not a perfect system. Number one, it's not a lot of money. So, if somebody should also have another form of income for when they retire. They should also be saving up money for retirement in another way, because for most people, Social Security isn't going to be enough money alone to live on. Another problem with that is the Social Security payments that I pay right now, it's not like the government is just keeping that money in a bank account or keeping that money in a drawer to give back to me when I'm older. I give them that money now, and they're paying it out immediately to people who are taking Social Security right now, which means that there has to be a certain ratio between the amount of people who are paying into the system right now and the amount of people who are taking from the system right now, or those older people. And our country's demographics are changing in a way that there are becoming more and more older people collecting Social Security and fewer working people who are paying into the system. So it's kind of there are a lot of concerns that that system won't work forever, or that they're going to have to make changes to it. All right, but old people are not the only people who collect Social Security. There are some younger people who collect Social Security. For example, some like people under 18 will collect Social Security if they have disabilities or if their parents or caretakers have died. And then there are, like working age people who collect Social Security for various reasons, mostly being like disabilities. So we're going to add that. So like people with disabilities are also often on Social Security. All right, Medicare, that is health insurance or medical insurance for people who are aged 65 and older. And then Medicaid is health insurance for people with low incomes. So not everybody gets their, here, let's finish this. Health insurance for people with low incomes. Not everybody gets their health insurance from the federal government. My health insurance is through my job, and it's through like a private health insurance company. Health insurance companies, they are companies. They are trying to make money. During President Obama's administration, he tried to make health insurance more available to more people through a law that is the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And some people don't like that because they don't want the government to get more involved in our economy. So it's still like this situation in our country where we're trying to figure out like, how involved should the government be in our healthcare? Should they be more involved or less involved? Should the government make it so that everybody has it, or should the government stay out of it? Okay. All right, so back to these other, so there are some other federal taxes like the estate tax, the gift tax. You probably don't know what those are, and that's okay. So just so you know, the estate tax is if somebody dies and then their estate, meaning like everything that they own, their home, all their stuff, and their, any money they have in the bank or in retirement savings, there is a tax on that money before it gets like given out to that person's kids or whoever gets their stuff. Gift tax means that if I were to give a gift of over $10,000 to another person, I would have to pay taxes on that money. Yeah. Nobody said it made sense. It's just the way it is. Okay. So a lot of our taxes go to the federal government and a lot of our taxes go to the state government. So again, there are state income taxes. Most states have an income tax. Not all states, like Florida and Nevada don't have state income taxes. I think. I got to double check on Florida, but I'm pretty sure. Hey, Brian. Thank you. My husband has confirmed Florida nor Alaska have state income taxes. All right. Just wanted to be sure. All right. Sales tax. So that, when you go to the store, and in the state of Minnesota, there can be sales taxes on most things you buy, but not food and not clothes. So if you're buying something that isn't food and isn't clothes, then there is going to be a tax on it. And some of that tax is going to go to our state government, and some of those taxes are going to go to our local governments. But sales taxes do not go to the federal government. Anytime there's a fee or a license, that is a tax. So, a lot of people are hunters, right? They like to go out and hunt animals, and they have to get a license, like if they go deer hunting, they have to have a deer license. Well, that license, it's not like a driver's license, which shows that you're like physically able to drive without like crashing into things. A hunting license, it's a tax. It's saying, hey, if you want to hunt our state's animals, you need to pay that tax to do so. And there's a few reasons to do that. One, it does cost the state money to like manage our lands and manage our animals. We have the Department of Natural Resources, which is in charge of that. And so that is a way to make it so that the people who use those things are helping to pay for those things. Same with like fishing licenses and stuff like that. Okay. And then our local taxes, which go to the city and the county. So property taxes are the biggest local tax that people have. So if you own property, like if you're not a renter, but if you own your home, you pay property taxes. And that property taxes are going to be different in different cities and in different counties. In some cities, you pay a higher percentage of the value of your home, and in some cities, you pay a lower percentage. So when some people are looking for a city to live in, they will pay attention to what the property taxes are if they want to buy a home there, so they know how much they have to pay. Again, there are some local sales taxes, and then there are some other fees. Like I remember when I lived in St. Paul, every year I had to like pay a fee for the sewer system, so like, it's a form of a tax. Anytime that you're giving money to the government, it's a form of a tax. And a lot of these fees would be like, parking tickets, and if you get towed and stuff like that, which has happened to me, and it totally sucks. So pay attention to those signs. Watch out for those snow emergencies. Oh my goodness. All right. So that is just a rundown of the different types of taxes that are out there. But we're mostly going to be talking about federal taxes because in macroeconomics, we're focusing on what the federal government can do about taxes. Okay. So this graph here, this is for the year. So we have 1997, 2007 and 2017, and so it tells you here that there's discretionary spending, mandatory spending, and net interest. So this darkest color, that's net interest. That's the percentage of the federal budget that gets used just for paying, or excuse me, just for making the payments on the interest on the loans that the federal government has. So that's not even like paying off the loans themselves. That's just paying the interest on the loans. And so in 1997, 15% of our budget was for that, and then 9%, and now 7%. Now this biggest part of the pie is what's called mandatory spending. Now, if something is mandatory, that means it must be done, right? Mandatory. It is mandatory that you do this. It means like you have to do this. So we can add that in there. It must be done. And the biggest parts of mandatory spending that our federal government has, and it must be done because it's the law. So the government has certain laws about money that they have to spend, and the biggest parts of that are Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. So what that means is that a big part of this part of what our federal government spends their money on is Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And then over here, this 30%, that's our discretionary spending. Discretionary spending means that they have a choice on how to spend that money. So when the federal government, when Congress, they're like, okay, we have this much money to spend. We have to spend this much of it on interest on our debt. We have to spend this much on it on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and other mandatory things. So we have this much left. What should we spend that on? What should our choices be? Well, this graph here gives us more detail about that. So this part right here, that is the interest on the debt. And then this whole thing right here, that is the mandatory spending, the spending that they must do. So you can see here that this huge part here, that is Social Security. So that's how much of our budget goes to Social Security. Here is Medicare, and here is Medicaid. And then this one includes unemployment insurance for people who are collecting unemployment, and then like some veterans and some federal and military stuff. So this part is just like those, like a little bit other of mandatory spending. All right, well then what's left? As you can see, the biggest part of our discretionary spending is the military, 18%. And then things like transportation, education, income for veterans, health, justice, environment, science. So those are like the other choices that that are made by our government each year about what to spend the money on. And so that discretion, so as you can see here, our mandatory spending is 66%, and then our discretionary spending is about 34%. All right, so that's just a kind of stuff. We're going to stop there, and we have a part 2 of our video coming up.